It was an ordinary Wednesday evening when the first real crack appeared in the facade of my seemingly perfect life. The sun had set, casting a warm glow across the living room, but there was an unsettling chill in the air as I sat on the couch, half-heartedly flipping through channels on the TV. That's when Sarah casually mentioned that she was going out to meet her best friend, Liza, for a girls' night. A simple phrase, really, but one that sent a shiver down my spine. I forced a smile and nodded, attempting to hide the uneasy feeling that had begun to settle deep in my gut. "Have fun," I said, my voice sounding more strained than I intended. I watched as she grabbed her purse, her casual demeanor not matching the turmoil that was brewing inside me. Over the past few months, Sarah had started to go out more frequently. Diva nights was what she called them, full of laughter and cocktails with Liza and the rest of their crew. I never minded at first, everyone deserves their time away from home. And I was all for it. But as the weeks turned into months, the frequency of these outings increased, and I began to notice the little things. The way she would linger in the bathroom longer than usual getting ready, the late-night texts that would occasionally light up her phone while we were watching TV, and the way she seemed a little too cheerful whenever she returned home. It was as if she were guarding some secret, and it gnawed at me. I tried to brush it off, convincing myself that I was being paranoid. But that night, as I watched her slip out the door, something inside me snapped. My heart raced as thoughts spiraled in my mind, fueled by insecurities I didn't want to acknowledge. Was I being unreasonable? Did I have any right to feel suspicious? But then, the doubt turned into something more insidious. I knew I had to find out the truth. When Sarah left, I found myself staring at her phone, which lay casually on the kitchen counter, almost taunting me. A voice in my head whispered that I should respect her privacy. But the darker part of me insisted that I needed to know what was going on. So, with a mixture of anxiety and determination, I picked it up. Her phone was unlocked, a small stroke of luck. My heart pounded as I navigated to her messaging app. At first, I skimmed through benign conversations with friends and family, but then I stumbled upon the chat with Liza. The playful banter quickly escalated into something more suggestive. Messages filled with inside jokes, coy flirtations, and even the occasional heart emoji struck me like a punch to the gut. As I read the words, disbelief washed over me, and I felt as though the floor had been pulled from under my feet. I couldn't breathe. The messages were far from innocent. They spoke of late-night rendezvous, whispered promises, and laughter that was intended for two. The reality of what I was reading crashed into me like a tidal wave, leaving me gasping for air. I felt the sting of betrayal seep into my bones as I processed what was unfolding in front of me. It was clear, Sarah was not just spending time with Liza. She was intimately involved with her. The weight of the revelation crushed my chest, and I fought to comprehend the implications. Images of them together flooded my mind, scenes of stolen kisses and shared secrets that I had never been a part of. I thought I knew my wife inside and out, but at that moment, I realized I had been living with a stranger. The anger bubbled up within me, sharp and furious, but beneath it lay a profound sense of loss. I had trusted her with my heart, with my life. And she had shattered that trust without a second thought. All those moments of doubt that I had brushed aside came flooding back, and I felt like a fool. I should have seen this coming, I should have known something was amiss. Sitting there in the dim light of the kitchen, I felt utterly defeated. The walls that once felt like my haven now felt like a prison. I couldn't just sit idly by and let this betrayal go unpunished. I would not walk away without some form of retribution. A plan began to form in my mind. And with it, the seed of vengeance took root. As I closed her phone and placed it back on the counter, I realized that I wouldn't just confront Sarah, I would make her feel the weight of her actions. She needed to understand the consequences of her betrayal, not just from me, but from the people she loved. I was no longer the oblivious husband. I was a man with a mission. And as that chilling realization set in, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. I knew what I had to do. The game had changed. And I was ready to play. The moment I pieced together the reality of Sarah's infidelity, a torrent of emotions surged through me. Anger, disbelief, and betrayal collided like a chaotic storm within my mind. I was a man caught in the eye of that storm, paralyzed by the profound shock of the truth. It felt as though I had been struck by lightning. Everything I had believed about our marriage had suddenly been ripped apart. The realization that my wife, the woman I loved deeply and committed my life to, had chosen to be unfaithful to Liza, her closest friend, was unbearable. My heart raced as I replayed the intimate moments we had shared, the laughter, and the whispered promises. It was like watching a highlight reel of my life with her, but now, each memory felt tainted, corrupted by the new knowledge that lurked in the background. As I sat in the silence of our home, I felt the walls closing in around me, the air growing thick with the weight of despair. I wanted to scream, to confront Sarah, to let her know just how deeply she had hurt me. But amidst the raging storm of my emotions, I felt a strange sense of clarity wash over me. A small, rational voice within urged me to hold my anger at bay. A public scene would be too easy. I craved a deeper form of justice, one that would expose her betrayal in a way she wouldn't soon forget. My mind raced with possibilities. I thought about the friends we had in common, the ones who had witnessed the beautiful facade of our relationship from the outside. Would they be shocked to learn the truth? Would they turn their backs on her? I envisioned the look on Sarah's face when she realized that her secret life was no longer hidden in the shadows. The thought brought a twisted smile to my lips, a flicker of satisfaction amidst the pain. I didn't want to merely confront her, I wanted to make her understand the gravity of her actions. The betrayal was not just between the two of us, it extended to the friendships we had cultivated over the years. I wanted to expose the lies and see the shame wash over her as she faced the people she had deceived. With that thought, a plan began to crystallize in my mind. What if I organized a gathering for our friends? A casual get-together where laughter and drinks would flow freely, a perfect backdrop for the revelation I was about to unleash. I imagined a night filled with warmth and camaraderie, only to have it shatter into chaos at the moment when the truth was revealed. I envisioned the evening unfolding. A cozy dinner at our place, with our friends gathered around the table, sharing stories and catching up. Liza would inevitably be there, caught in the web of her deception. As the night progressed, I would build up to the moment of truth, carefully orchestrating my words to create an atmosphere charged with anticipation. "Let's toast to wonderful friendships," I would say, raising my glass, my heart pounding with adrenaline as I prepared to deliver the ultimate punchline. "To relationships that transcend mere friendship." The room would fall silent as the gravity of my words settled in. I could picture the color draining from Sarah's face, her eyes widening in realization as the truth hung heavily in the air. I savored the thought of it, the satisfaction of knowing I would have the upper hand, the power to take control of the narrative. I would not let Sarah dictate the terms of our relationship any longer. She had crossed a line, and now it was my turn to turn the tables. The excitement coursed through me as I mapped out the details of the gathering in my mind. I would invite the friends who mattered most, those who had witnessed our journey together. They had been there for the milestones, our wedding, anniversaries, the highs and lows. They would be the perfect audience for this unveiling. As the idea solidified, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. I was no longer just the hurt husband, I was a man on a mission, ready to reclaim my narrative. I would let the world know about the betrayal, and in doing so, I would strip away the mask that Sarah had worn for so long. In the coming days, I began to meticulously plan the evening. I would send out invitations, keeping the tone light and inviting. Just a small gathering, I'd say, lacing my words with a hint of intrigue. I could already hear the laughter, see the smiles, and envision the reactions when the truth erupted like a volcano. No longer would I be a passive participant in this tragedy, I would become the orchestrator of my own story, one that would ultimately hold Sarah accountable for her actions. I felt a strange sense of empowerment as the pieces began to fall into place. This was my chance to expose the truth, to make them both face the consequences of their choices, and I would not let it slip away. As the day of the gathering approached, I could hardly contain my anticipation. I envisioned the shocked expressions, the whispers that would follow, and the way the dynamic of our relationships would shift irrevocably. The storm of emotions was still there, but now it felt different. It had transformed into a burning determination that fueled me forward. I was ready to take my life back, one calculated move at a time. As the days turned into a blur of anticipation and adrenaline, I began to lay the groundwork for the evening that would change everything. The idea of the gathering was exhilarating, a thrilling blend of dread and excitement. I meticulously crafted the guest list, handpicking our mutual friends, those who had been by our side through thick and thin. Each name held weight in my mind, their faces playing out in my thoughts as I imagined the unfolding drama. I texted each person, trying to keep the tone light and casual. Just a small get-together at our place. Let's catch up and have some fun. I could almost hear their replies echoing in my head: excitement, curiosity, perhaps even relief that we were finally hosting again. They had missed our gatherings, the laughter, the camaraderie, the sense of belonging. But what they didn't know was that this gathering would be anything but ordinary. Sarah was oblivious to my scheming. She had no idea that the evening would unveil the truth she had desperately tried to hide. I played my role masterfully, acting as if everything was perfectly normal. I helped her with the preparations, gathering supplies, deciding on the menu, and arranging the seating. She seemed thrilled at the prospect of hosting friends, laughing as we planned a delicious spread of appetizers and a selection of fine wines. The more she seemed to enjoy it, the more my heart swelled with anticipation. It was almost painful to maintain the facade, but the thought of what was to come made it all worth it. With each passing day, I grew more excited and more determined. I knew that the pivotal moment of truth was approaching, and I wanted everything to be perfect. I spent hours organizing the house, clearing away clutter, and ensuring the ambiance was just right. I placed candles strategically around the living room, envisioning how their soft glow would illuminate the faces of our friends as they settled in for what they thought would be an evening of joy and laughter. As I cooked, I found a strange sense of solace in the routine of chopping vegetables and marinating chicken. The rhythmic motions were almost meditative, allowing me to reflect on what was about to unfold. I pictured Sarah and Liza laughing, their heads thrown back in amusement as they recounted stories from their past, completely unaware of the trap that lay ahead. The thought of it filled me with a mix of dread and exhilaration. I was ready to strike, and I wanted the moment to feel monumental. Sarah would occasionally pop into the kitchen, her energy infectious as she hummed to herself. "This is going to be such a fun night," she exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with excitement. I would nod along, my stomach churning with a cocktail of emotions. Did she truly believe that everything was fine? Did she think I was blind to what had been happening right under my nose? In those moments, I felt the weight of my resolve. I had to keep playing the part of the oblivious husband. I couldn't give anything away. Not when I was so close to executing my plan. I needed to maintain the illusion that I was just a supportive partner, eager to entertain and host a delightful evening. As the day of the gathering approached, I found myself pacing around the house, rehearsing my lines in my mind. Would I be able to deliver the perfect toast? Would I manage to keep my composure when I saw the shock and betrayal on Sarah's face? There was a nagging worry in the back of my mind, but I pushed it aside. This was my moment, and I had to seize it. Finally, the day of the event arrived, and the excitement turned electric. I woke up early, a fire of determination igniting within me. The house had to be spotless, the food perfect, the atmosphere charged with just the right amount of anticipation. I spent the morning cleaning every corner, arranging flowers in a vase, and setting the table with care. I even prepared a signature cocktail, something I knew everyone would love. It was a subtle way of making sure that everyone was comfortable and relaxed before the storm hit. Sarah was busy in her world, preparing her special dish, her famous spinach dip, which always seemed to be a crowd favorite. I watched her move about the kitchen, a strange mixture of admiration and frustration swirling within me. How could she be so blissfully unaware of the chaos lurking just beneath the surface? As the hour of the gathering drew closer, I could feel my heart pounding in anticipation. I looked at the clock and realized that our guests would be arriving soon. I took a deep breath. Collecting myself. Everything was set, the stage was ready, and soon I would have the opportunity to reveal the truth in the most theatrical way possible. The doorbell rang, shattering the quiet calm of the house. I glanced at Sarah, who rushed to answer it, her face lighting up as she welcomed our first guests. Laughter erupted as familiar faces filled the space, the living room suddenly bursting with energy. I joined in, shaking hands and exchanging warm hugs, all the while maintaining my calm exterior. Despite the swirling emotions brewing inside me, as the evening progressed, I made sure to engage with everyone, sharing jokes and stories, and filling the air with light-hearted banter. But now and then, I would catch glimpses of Sarah and Liza across the room. They were inseparable, whispering secrets and giggling like schoolgirls. My gut twisted at the sight, but I reminded myself of the purpose of this gathering. Soon enough, their playful facade would crumble before our friends. The atmosphere was relaxed and jovial. with glasses clinking and wine flowing freely. The sound of laughter echoed through the house, enveloping me in a sense of normalcy that felt almost surreal. Yet, beneath the surface, tension simmered. I could feel it in the air, a potent mix of anticipation and dread. I positioned myself strategically in the room, ensuring I could keep both Sarah and Liza within my line of sight. I made small talk with friends, but my focus was unwavering. I was waiting for the right moment to launch into my carefully crafted toast. The pivotal moment that would reveal the truth. Every smile and every laugh felt like a countdown to the impending climax of the night. I watched as Sarah poured another round of drinks for Liza, their fingers brushing against each other just a moment too long. I fought to suppress the anger that threatened to rise within me. How could they act so carefree, so blissfully unaware? The deception was palpable, and I was determined to shatter it. As the clock ticked closer to my planned moment, I felt a rush of adrenaline. The evening had unfolded beautifully, a tapestry of laughter and connection, and soon it would all come crashing down. I could see the sparkle in Sarah's eyes as she chatted with our friends, completely oblivious to the storm that was brewing. The anticipation grew heavier, and I could almost taste the bittersweet victory. I wanted to savor this moment, to relish in the power I was about to wield. I knew I had to act soon before the evening slipped away into mere pleasantries. "Hey, everyone," I finally called out, my voice breaking through the chatter. Heads turned, conversations faded into silence, and I could feel the electric charge in the air. The moment was here. My heart raced as I prepared to unleash the truth that would upend everything. With a glass raised high, I prepared to deliver my toast, the weight of my words poised to drop like a hammer. I looked over at Sarah and Liza, who exchanged puzzled glances, unaware that their world was about to shatter. I took a deep breath, ready to change the course of the night, ready to turn the laughter into shock and disbelief. As the evening unfolded, the atmosphere buzzed with laughter and the sound of clinking glasses. Friends were sharing stories, reminiscing about old times, and basking in the glow of camaraderie. I could see the way Sarah glowed as she interacted with our guests, her laughter bright and genuine, unaware that the night was about to take a sharp turn into the extraordinary. With each passing moment, I felt the adrenaline coursing through my veins, amplifying my determination. I had built this moment in my mind for days, and now it was time to execute my plan flawlessly. I waited patiently until I sensed the perfect point in the evening when the energy in the room was relaxed, and no one was expecting a shift in dynamics. The wine had flowed freely, laughter echoed, and the casual conversations had lulled into a comfortable hum. Then, I stood up, raising my glass high to catch the attention of everyone in the room. The chatter faded into silence as all eyes turned toward me, the energy shifting as curiosity ignited in their expressions. My heart raced, but I kept my composure, adopting a calm and confident demeanor. This was the moment I had been waiting for. "Let's toast," I began, my voice steady and clear. "To wonderful relationships that go beyond friendship." I directed my gaze straight at Sarah and Liza, the intensity of my stare locking onto them like a predator fixing its gaze on its prey. For a brief moment, confusion flickered in their eyes. I could almost see the wheels turning in their minds as they processed my words. There was a subtle shift in the room. Whispers began to echo softly as guests exchanged puzzled glances, their curiosity piqued. My heart thumped wildly in my chest as I watched Sarah and Liza's expressions morph from surprise to dawning realization. The atmosphere shifted in an instant. Sarah's face drained of color, her vibrant glow replaced by a ghostly pallor. The laughter that had filled the room moments earlier was now replaced by a tense silence, thick and suffocating. I could see Liza's mouth moving, trying to form words, but the confidence had drained from her. She attempted to force a smile, but it was painfully evident that she was struggling to mask her shock. At that moment, the tension in the room was palpable. Friends who had been laughing just seconds before now wore expressions of confusion, interest, and concern. It was as if someone had dropped a heavy stone into the calm waters of the evening, sending ripples of unease throughout the gathering. Their eyes darted between Sarah, Liza, and me, trying to comprehend the weight of what I had just declared. I felt a surge of triumph wash over me. This was exactly what I had envisioned. Sarah, caught off guard, realizing that her carefully constructed world was about to come crashing down. I could sense the questions swirling in everyone's minds, the silent speculation: what did he mean? What's happening? For Sarah, the reality of the moment hit her like a freight train. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words emerged. Instead, her eyes darted to Liza, searching for support, but all she found was the same mix of horror and disbelief reflected at her. Liza's cheeks flushed, and I could see the way she shifted uncomfortably in her seat, desperately trying to re-establish control over the situation. Wait, what? A friend finally broke the silence, his brows furrowed in confusion. The room buzzed with murmurs as everyone began to piece together the implications of my words. I felt a rush of exhilaration as I took in the scene, relishing the shock and disbelief etched across the faces of our friends. Is this a joke? Someone else asked, their voice trembling slightly as they looked at Sarah, who seemed frozen in place. The questions piled up, each one another nail in the coffin of the facade that Sarah and Liza had built. No joke here, I replied coolly, leaning into the tension, letting the reality of the moment settle like a thick fog. It seems our dear Sarah and Liza have been exploring a little more than just friendship. I emphasized the word friendship, letting it linger in the air, heavy with meaning. The looks of shock morphed into whispers of disbelief as realization dawned on our guests. I could see some friends exchanging knowing glances, piecing together their memories, their observations, as if the puzzle of our relationships was finally falling into place. Laughter had turned into gasps, and the warmth of the evening had been replaced with an almost palpable chill. Sarah's expression twisted from shock to a mixture of anger and desperation as she began to process what was happening. Her eyes flickered between mine and Liza's, searching for some explanation that might allow her to regain control. I could see her fighting to hold onto the pieces of her carefully constructed world, but the foundation had crumbled, and the truth was spilling out like an overflowing dam. Matt, what are you doing? She finally managed to stammer, her voice trembling as the bravado she often exuded crumbled before our friends. I'm doing what you couldn't, Sarah, I replied, my voice steady. I'm showing everyone the truth that you've tried to keep hidden. You deserve to face the consequences of your actions, not just in private, but in front of those who care about us. As her eyes widened in horror, I could see the realization settling in, the weight of her betrayal crashing over her like a tidal wave. She had thought she could escape the truth, that she could continue living her double life without consequences. But here we were, surrounded by friends who had once admired our love story. Now witnesses to the unraveling of it. The tension in the room was electrifying, a charged silence that hung heavy in the air. I felt alive in that moment, the satisfaction of unveiling the truth washing over me. I was no longer just the hurt husband. I was the man who had taken control of his narrative, and I would make sure that Sarah understood the gravity of her betrayal, even if it meant shattering the lives of those around us in the process. With the eyes of our friends fixed on me, I felt an overwhelming sense of clarity. The moment had arrived for me to expose everything, to lay bare the truth that had been festering beneath the surface for far too long. I took a deep breath, allowing the weight of the situation to wash over me. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about reclaiming my story, about confronting the betrayal head-on. Let me explain, I began, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions churning inside me. What you all thought was a simple get-together is, in fact, the culmination of months of deceit. The room was silent, and I could see my friends leaning in, their faces a mixture of curiosity and concern. I locked eyes with Sarah and Liza, who stood side by side, their expressions a blend of shock and panic. There was nowhere for them to hide. I discovered the messages, I continued, each word feeling like a hammer striking against the truth. The ones that you thought I would never see. The late-night texts are filled with longing and secrets. The playful exchanges that carried meanings I never would have guessed. You thought I was oblivious, didn't you? I glanced at Sarah, who opened her mouth to protest, but I silenced her with a sharp look. I found out about your affair, Sarah. I know it's been going on for months, perhaps even longer. My voice rose with each revelation, the truth becoming a weapon that cut through the tension in the room. You and Liza were not just friends, you were lovers. And you laughed at me, at my trust, while I was completely unaware of the betrayal unfolding right under my nose. Gasps filled the room, punctuating the silence that had enveloped us. I watched as shock registered on the faces of our friends, their eyes darting between the three of us. There was a moment of hesitation, a shared disbelief that coursed through the crowd. I could see the realization dawn on them, piecing together the implications of what I was saying. They were witnessing a fracture in the foundation of our relationships. A truth that would ripple out far beyond this moment. It's all so clear now, I pressed on, my anger fueling my resolve. Those nights you claimed you were working late, the girls' nights that turned into intimate rendezvous. You thought you could keep this hidden, that I wouldn't notice the way you looked at each other, the secret smiles and whispered conversations. I gestured dramatically toward Liza, who stood frozen, her face flushed with a mix of embarrassment and guilt. You treated our marriage as if it were a joke. Sarah, you were my partner, my confidant. And to find out that you were sharing those intimate moments with someone I considered a friend is beyond devastating. It's a betrayal I never saw coming. My voice trembled slightly, but I pressed on, determined to unveil every hidden truth. Do you remember the night we celebrated our anniversary? I continued, my voice rising with intensity. You made me believe that everything was perfect, that we were happy. While you were planning romantic evenings with Liza, whispering sweet nothings in each other's ears. I could see the color draining from Sarah's face as the enormity of her actions crashed down upon her. I've replayed every moment in my mind, I said, my voice thick with emotion. Every time you told me you loved me, every laugh we shared, every plan we made. And now I realize those moments were tainted by your deceit. You deceived not only me but our friends, the people who cared about us. You've shattered the trust that held us all together. At this point, I could feel the tears welling up in my eyes, but I fought them back. This wasn't about showing weakness, it was about demonstrating the power of truth. I needed to show them both that I was no longer a victim in this story. I was taking back my narrative, and I would not let them paint me as a fool. Do you even know how much I trusted you, Sarah? I continued, my voice softer but tinged with bitterness. How could you betray that trust so casually? I shared my life with you. My dreams, my fears. I thought you were my forever. I could see Liza's hands tremble at her sides, a clear indication of her guilt. She looked as if she wanted to speak, to defend herself, but the words wouldn't come. I didn't give her the chance. Tonight, you both stand exposed. The truth has finally emerged, and there's no hiding from it. You thought you could keep your secrets, that you could laugh behind my back without facing the consequences. But here we are, and you have nowhere to turn. I felt an undeniable sense of empowerment surge through me, the weight of the truth lightening my heart, even as my anger simmered just beneath the surface. The silence in the room was deafening, heavy with the realization of what had just transpired. Our friends were watching with wide eyes, their expressions a mixture of sympathy and horror. I could feel their shock as they processed the magnitude of my revelations, realizing they had been unwittingly entangled in this web of deceit. Let this serve as a reminder, I said, my voice steady and resolute. Love should never be taken for granted. And friendships built on deception only serve to poison our lives. Tonight, I've pulled back the curtain on the truth, and it's ugly, but it's real. I refuse to live in a lie any longer. With those words, I knew that everything had changed. The bonds between us had been irrevocably altered, and I stood before them, raw and exposed, but finally free from the shackles of betrayal. The room fell into stunned silence, a heavy, suffocating blanket of disbelief that hung over us all. I could almost hear the collective heartbeat of our friends as they processed the weight of my revelations. Faces twisted in confusion and shock, whispers of disbelief broke out among the crowd. Some shook their heads as if trying to dispel the truth, while others exchanged glances, their eyes wide with astonishment, as if they were witnessing a surreal nightmare unfold. Is this for real? One of our friends, Jenna, finally managed to voice, her tone a mix of disbelief and concern. Her brow furrowed as she glanced back and forth between me, Sarah, and Liza, trying to make sense of the situation. The look on her face was a mirror of the bewilderment that engulfed the entire room. Others nodded slowly, clearly grappling with the reality of what they had just heard. Matt, are you serious? Another friend, Tom, chimed in, his voice heavy with disbelief. This can't be happening. He leaned in closer, scanning my face for any hint that this was some sort of elaborate prank, but I remained resolute, my expression a testament to the truth I had just laid bare. Sensing the shift in the atmosphere, Sarah finally found her voice, but it came out as a strangled whisper. I can explain, she stammered, her eyes darting nervously between me and Liza. But the words tumbled out in a disorganized mess, lacking the confidence they once held. She was trying to regain her footing, but the ground had been pulled out from under her. Liza, on the other hand, remained eerily quiet, her face drained of color. She stood beside Sarah like a deer caught in headlights, her mouth slightly agape as if she had forgotten how to speak. I watched her shift uncomfortably, the weight of her guilt palpable in the room. The silence stretched on, thick and suffocating, as our friends struggled to comprehend the truth behind the facade they had known. As Sarah attempted to gather her thoughts, our mutual friends exchanged incredulous glances. Their expressions a mixture of sympathy for me and bewilderment at the unfolding drama. The whispers grew louder, a chaotic chorus of voices trying to piece together what they had just witnessed. "I never would have imagined this," Jenna murmured, shaking her head. "I thought you two were happy." Her voice trailed off as she met my gaze, her eyes filled with concern and confusion. It was clear that this revelation had shattered the illusions we had all held. "Guys, we need to take a step back," Tom interjected, attempting to maintain some semblance of order amidst the chaos. He turned to Sarah and Liza, his expression hardening. "What the hell were you thinking? How could you do this to Matt?" His tone was accusatory, but it resonated with the shock that was palpable in the air. Sarah's face flushed crimson as she realized the magnitude of what had transpired. "It wasn't supposed to be like this," she said, her voice trembling as tears began to well in her eyes. "I never meant for it to come out this way. It happened." I was confused, but her words fell flat, lacking the conviction needed to defend herself. Liza finally stirred, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm so sorry, Matt," she said, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I never wanted to hurt you. I thought," but her voice faltered, trailing off into an awkward silence. She, too, had no words to articulate the mess we were all caught in. The awkwardness hung heavily in the air, and the gravity of the situation settled like a thick fog. Some friends shifted uncomfortably, unsure of how to respond, while others simply stared, their expressions a mix of pity and disbelief. "What do we do now?" someone asked, breaking the silence, but the question hung unanswered in the air. The truth was, there was nothing anyone could do. The damage had been done, and we were all left standing in the wreckage of shattered trust and broken relationships. I could feel a knot forming in my stomach as I watched Sarah and Liza, their faces marked by the raw horror of being exposed. I felt no sympathy for them, only a growing sense of empowerment as I took in their humiliation. They were no longer the confident women I had known, they were just two people grappling with the consequences of their actions. "I think we all need a moment," Jenna suggested tentatively, her voice breaking through the thick tension. "Maybe we should just take some time to process what's happening." It was a reasonable suggestion, but I could see that it was too late to salvage the evening. The fragile bonds of friendship had been irrevocably strained, and the festering wound of betrayal would take far more than a moment to heal. As the conversation dwindled, I felt a wave of bittersweet satisfaction wash over me. I had exposed the truth, stripped away the layers of deceit that had hidden Sarah and Liza's betrayal, and while the pain of this revelation stung, I felt a renewed sense of clarity. I had laid my heart bare, but now I was free from the shackles of their lies. I watched our friends begin to disperse, some offering hesitant words of comfort while others simply turned away, grappling with the shocking revelation that had shattered the evening. It was a painful spectacle, but it was a necessary one, a moment of reckoning that none of us would soon forget. In that chaotic whirlwind of emotions, I understood that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but I was finally ready to face them. The truth had set me free, and as I stood among the remnants of my former life, I felt a flicker of hope for what lay ahead. After the storm of emotions swirled around the room, I felt a peculiar sense of calm wash over me. The truth had been laid bare, the facade shattered, and now it was time for me to take my final bow. As I placed my glass back on the table, the sound of crystal meeting wood echoed through the stillness, snapping everyone back to the moment. I could feel the weight of their stares upon me, a mix of pity, disbelief, and perhaps a tinge of admiration. "Now you both know how it feels to have your trust betrayed," I said, my voice steady, cutting through the tension like a knife. I looked directly at Sarah and Liza, their faces pale and marred by embarrassment. There was no way to sugarcoat the moment, nor did I want to. I was standing on the precipice of a new chapter, and I intended to make it clear that I would not be defined by their actions. "I hope this experience leaves a lasting impression on you," I continued, feeling a surge of strength. "You thought you could keep this hidden, that you could weave your deceit into the fabric of our lives without consequence. But tonight, in front of our friends, you've been exposed for who you truly are. I let the words hang in the air, allowing them to sink in, to settle uncomfortably within the space that had been filled with laughter and joy just moments ago. The room was silent, the only sound the soft rustling of clothing as my friends shifted uncomfortably, uncertain of how to respond. Some of them looked at me with understanding, while others still tried to process the chaos that had erupted in front of them. But my focus was solely on Sarah and Liza, whose expressions were now a mixture of shock and remorse. Trust is a fragile thing, I continued, my tone unwavering. Once it's broken, it takes an eternity to rebuild, if it can be rebuilt at all. You've taken something precious from me, and in doing so, you've also taken something from yourselves. I felt a weight lift from my chest as if each word I spoke was a step toward reclaiming my dignity. This was more than just a moment of revenge. It was a declaration of my self-worth. I won't pretend that this doesn't hurt. It does. But what hurts more is knowing that the people I cared for, the people I trusted, have chosen betrayal over loyalty. I took a moment to look around the room, meeting the eyes of our friends, and gauging their reactions. They were witnesses to this tragic unfolding, and I could see their expressions shifting, grappling with the realization that they were part of this fractured story. I could have chosen to fight back in anger, to lash out and create an even bigger scene, but I refused to stoop to that level. Instead, I choose to walk away with my head held high, I declared, feeling empowered by the conviction in my words. You both wanted a secret life, but I'm not going to allow your deception to dictate how I live mine. With a deep breath, I reached for my keys resting on the table, feeling their familiar weight in my hand. This simple action felt monumental, a tangible symbol of my newfound freedom. Tonight marks the end of this chapter. And I'm ready to write a new one without the shadows of betrayal lurking in the background. I took a final glance at Sarah and Liza, their faces now a mixture of remorse and despair. I wouldn't allow myself to feel pity, they had chosen their path. As I moved toward the door, I paused for a moment, turning back to face the room. Remember this moment, I said, my voice steady. Let it serve as a reminder of the consequences of betrayal. Life has a way of coming full circle, and while I may walk away now, the truth has a way of surfacing eventually. With those parting words, I pushed open the door, feeling the cool air wash over me like a cleansing wave. I stepped outside, leaving the chaos of that night behind. I knew that I had made my statement loud and clear, that my departure was not just a retreat but a proclamation of strength. I walked away from the betrayal, the humiliation, and the pain, ready to reclaim my life. The moon hung high in the sky, illuminating my path as I stepped into the night, ready to embrace whatever came next. As I walked down the street, I felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. The bitterness that had threatened to consume me began to fade, replaced by a growing sense of empowerment. I was no longer a victim of their deceit. I was a survivor, ready to forge a new path and rebuild my life on my terms. This was just the beginning of my journey, and I was determined to make it count.